How's it going, everybody? My name is Jake Stowell, and I am the instructor for this course. And I wanted to put this video together for a couple of reasons. One, I want to just talk about assignments generally, how I see them, what I expect, and how maybe, and to talk about an approach of maybe sort of breaking them up a little bit so they may seem a little bit more manageable. I know for some this may be unfamiliar territory, for others they may have a little more experience, but in no way do I expect you to have a statistical background or training in quantitative analyses. So with that said, let's proceed. The first thing that I want to say about assignments generally is that I think they can all be divided into three basic steps. Um, the first is like the data collection or the compiling of the data. And once we have that, we can move to the second step, the analytical phase, and then the interpretation phase. For our class, we are going to spend most of our time in these in steps 2 and 3, um, but all three play an important role. But before spending too much time talking about the actual assignment, again, I want to talk about a little bit about my view of assignments more generally. And specifically, um, I think that steps 2 and 3 are equally important. And what I mean by that is if either of those two things are lacking, so if either the analyses produce incorrect results because of an error in computation, that makes the numbers impossible to meaningfully interpret, or if we don't really know how to interpret them as analysts, then even if the numbers are correct, they're meaningless. And so for the purposes of these assignments, I want to focus on both. So both elements will be engaged. Related to that, in terms of how much time should these take, I don't really have a great answer for that. And that's not because I don't care. It's because I think I might be underestimating the amount of time these assignments take. And so I believe you should be able to, or could be able to, and again, it's just in my mind, complete the assignment start to finish in maybe 4 hours. Um, but that could be way off. And to the extent that the assignments are taking an undue amount of time, so say more than 4 or 5 hours, if it's much more than that, then I would like to know if you could provide some constructive feedback. That would be appreciated, because um, again, it's hard for me to gauge that um, without any information. So please let me know. Also, a way that I think about it is, because these two steps are equally important, I think, at least initially, the divide could be something like 60-40, with 60% on the step 2 or steps 1 and 2, the collection of the data and the analysis, and then the remainder going towards the interpretation and writing up the results. That's just an estimate, but it should, I think, be somewhere around there. And again, if that ratio is off balance, please let me know, because that's something that I would like to know and try to help close that gap. I should also say that these will, these percentages will vary a little bit across both assignments and, vary across from assignment to assignment. But if for some reason you're finding a big imbalance in that ratio or that divide, please let me know. And lastly, I also want to say that I hope that through these exercises, it is my hope that you will arrive at a new or different appreciation for the complexities associated with this relationship that we're going to focus on between immigration and crime. Okay, so starting with the data collection step, what we're going to do is I'm going to sort of cycle through um, a browser and then Excel. So if you see this switching around, that's the easiest way I could figure out to do it. But first, what we're going to do is we're going to click on the FBI link that was provided. And what you'll see here is that it takes us to this page that looks like a couple of things. One, it looks like it has been up since like 1996. And then it's also has these weird buttons and all of that. But what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down and you'll see that we're going to see links to the reports. Um, and we're going to be looking for data for the year 2000, 2010, and 2019. And so once we look through, uh, get the numbers we're going for each year respectively, we will then paste them into the spreadsheet. So you will see how we can put these together in preparation for the analysis. So if we start with the year 2000, what you will see is this year is a little bit different for a couple of reasons. But when we click on the page, first, this also looks like it's from like, well, I guess like 21 years ago. But we'll scroll down to the bottom of the page and we will click on Table 8 because that has the information that we need. What's going to happen is it will prompt you to download a spreadsheet, and it is from that spreadsheet that we will get the information that we need. Sorry about this switching around again. But here we are, we open the spreadsheet. You may get a warning that says enable content or something like this, but it's provided for the FBI, so I think we are good with that. I'm going to be looking for my hometown, San Diego, also known as America's Finest City. And we search for that, and lo and behold, you see we have the city of San Diego. One quick note is that some names repeat within city names repeat, so make sure you have the right city and the right state. Otherwise, the comparisons can get a little bit wild in terms of the changes that you might calculate. So the first thing that we're going to do here is you see we have information about the population, and then we have these total crime counts, and we'll talk about the difference in just a sec. And then we have these counts for the violent offenses, and so that's murder, rape, robbery, and aggravated assault, what some folks refer to as the Mount Rushmore of crime, followed by property crimes, and those are burglary, larceny, auto theft, and arson. So what we're going to need to talk about in just a little bit is how do we treat arsons. They're treated a little bit differently sometimes, but we will talk about that. But first, what I want to mention is that there's an internal consistency to all these numbers that can be used as a good check against to make sure you're summing the right numbers of crimes. And so what we see is that those the first number is the population that's going to be used as the denominator for our rates. But then we have these two numbers that are very similar, and they both purport to have the total number of crimes. The difference between them is 204 events, which is the number of arsons. Which value you choose um, doesn't matter as much to me. What matters more is that you try to be consistent. So the first thing we do, we have all of our crimes should sum to this number. Then we're going to create a count of violent crimes. And in order to do this, we will write the following: equal sum, and then we'll open parentheses and we will highlight those 4 cells that that constitute the violent crimes, and hit enter, and you see we have 7,160 violent crimes in the year 2000. We're going to write this similar formula, but for the next 4 cells. And what you see here is that the sum of the property and violent crimes equal the total. So we could have just copied that right over, but I think it's always important to check your numbers, and we can make use of this internal check by, well, what we could do is we could have just deleted this value here, and then if we take the sum of the property and violent crimes, they should equal that value 46563, as it does here. It should. These are internally consistent values, so there's no reason why they shouldn't match up. So assuming they do, what we will do next is we will transfer these values over to the spreadsheet, and you'll see that I have done that before. And I mean, before making this video, just so you could see where those numbers are. I recommend also when you paste them in, you paste them in as values, not as formula. Also, when we go over collecting the data for years 2010 and 2019 are roughly the same. So I will go over one of those years and then just know that it's basically the same process. And what we will do is we are going to click on the year 2010 and it takes us to this page. Crime United States, it looks a little bit more modern, I guess, fancy header, and then we have all these links, and I know it can seem a little bit unwieldy and not knowing where to click. What we're looking for is the listing of the tables, the table numbers. So what I did is I just clicked on property crime, and you'll see on the right hand side there's a list of data tables, and that's awesome for our purposes because we know we're looking for table 8. Typically it's table 8, but that's a good place to start. And then you see here the data here are for offenses known by city and state. We'll click on California, and then again, easiest way I think is to just search for your city, like Control F. But it's also, I want to point out, or important to note, that this page is a little bit different from the previous in that they present these numbers already formatted for us. So no need to work with a spreadsheet, although you can download them. But you see they provide totals for violent crimes and for property crimes for each of these cities. So if we search for San Diego, you see that the numbers that we're looking for, we need the same 3 pieces of information. We need information about the population. At that time, we need information about the number of violent crimes, and we need the sum of property crimes. Once we have these values, again, we'll just paste them into the spreadsheet and go through that same process for the remaining year. Once we have all of these numbers and we've checked them for their internal consistency, it's a matter of calculating the rates. And so the way that we do that is we are going to make use of the information that we just compiled, and you'll see that I calculated the rates for the year 2000, and I put them in there because I wanted to show you how I generated them, and then also a easy trick to fill in all of the rates. So what you'll see here is the way that we calculate rates is we divide the number of events by the population, and then we multiply that proportion by 100,000. And so that's why a rate is often referred to as the number of crimes per 100,000 population. The formula we use to generate the rate is equal to 100,000 times C4 divided by B4, and that will give us the value for total crime in the year 2000. And then we will compute similar rates using a similar formula for both violent and property offenses. So for violent crimes, the formula will be equals 100,000 times D4 divided by B4, which I don't know if you all are old enough to know the game Battleship, but that kind of sounds a little bit like Battleship. And as you can see, it generates the same value we had before. So that's, I wanted to have them filled in so that you would see and trust the values that I created. So now that we have the rates for total violent and property crimes, um, I don't want you to, unless you want extra practice, write formulas for each of these individual cells. Excel makes it exceedingly easy to do that. So what we will do is we will highlight these three cells that we just populated with the rates, and then you'll see that if we move the mouse right to the corner and pull it straight down, it will fill in all of those values. So again, if we're confident that the rates are right, then this is an easy technique. Next, we're going to work on the step 2, which is the analytical side, which is the subject of the next video. I hope this helps. If there are questions or you would like to talk more about the process, please let me know, and we can find a time to talk by Zoom or over the phone. Thanks so much.